Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I am sharing 4 super easy and delicious sheet pan meals. I love sheet pan meals because they're so easy with cleanup. There's also, in all of these, minimal ingredients, and a lot of the work is just kind of chopping up different ingredients, putting them on a sheet pan, and baking them. So the first recipe is for chicken fajitas. So I'm starting by just chopping up an onion, just making them into slices. So not too much chopping involved with that. And then I'm going to be chopping up 2 bell peppers. You can use any kind of bell peppers you want. I chose red and yellow, and I'm just going to be cutting them into strips. So I'll go ahead and cut those into strips. And then I also cut up the chicken into strips as well. With cutting up the chicken, I'm just trying to cut them into bite-sized pieces. So I have about 1.5 pounds of chicken breast, and I'm just trying to cut those into uniform slices just so that they'll cook evenly. So just however you think it would be best to cut it, and you could do little chunks or strips of chicken. I was trying to just kind of think of how fajitas would be served at a Mexican restaurant and just kind of chopping them into slices that were going to be manageable to put into a tortilla. This chicken also had quite a bit of fat on it, so as I was cutting up the pieces, I just tried to remove as much fat as possible. Totally up to you, that's just my personal preference. Usually chicken breasts don't have as much fat, but for whatever reason this package did, so I was going ahead and just removing as much as I could. Once you have the chicken cut up, you're going to add that to the bowl with the peppers and onions, and then you're going to put about 1 tablespoon of olive oil on that. For some reason I didn't show that, so then you're going to go ahead and add a packet of fajita seasoning. I used the McCormick fajita seasoning. You can use whatever fajita seasoning you want. I've also seen recipes to make your own. So go ahead and just toss that together, and then you're going to pour that out onto a sprayed baking sheet. I always put either aluminum foil or parchment paper down on my sheet pan, and that also helps with the cleanup. Once you have that spread out evenly, you're going to bake that in a 425-degree oven for 15 to 20 minutes until the chicken is cooked through. Then go ahead and broil it for about 2 minutes to get the vegetables a little more brown. And then we served it with tortillas, cilantro lime rice, and beans. We brought that to a friend that recently had a baby, and they absolutely loved it. So it's also a very portable meal, great for weeknights. highly recommend the chicken fajitas. The next recipe is a barbecue chicken dinner sheet pan meal. So we're making some barbecue chicken as well as some veggies with zucchini, bell peppers, corn on the cob, and some potatoes. So I'm starting by chopping up the zucchini. I had family over the night that I made this, so I am doubling the recipe. So I am chopping up 2 zucchini, and then I am starting to chop up the red potatoes. It calls for 8 to 10 small red potatoes, so I used about double of those as well. And then you'll want 1 red onion and then a large red bell pepper as well for the veggies. I'm chopping the bell peppers into sort of chunks. So unlike the fajitas, I'm not leaving them in strips. I'm kind of just cutting them into chunks, and that's what I'm going to do with the red onion as well. I just felt like for this meal that would be a little bit better, and that would help everything fit on the sheet pan, and everything would be sort of a uniform size to cook evenly. I went ahead and put all of the vegetables and the potatoes into a bowl just to make it a little bit easier to pour out onto the sheet pan. Then you're going to add a couple tablespoons of olive oil and some salt and pepper before roasting the vegetables. Typically, all of this would fit on one sheet pan, but since I am doubling the recipe, I went ahead and put all of the vegetables and potatoes onto one sheet pan. And then once we start working with the chicken and the corn, I do add some of the corn on this sheet pan and then some of it onto the chicken sheet pan. With the corn, you're just going to wrap it in aluminum foil. The recipe says you can put about a half a tablespoon of butter into the foil and then add some salt and pepper. And that way, while it's cooking, it'll just kind of already be buttery and have some salt and pepper on it. I didn't do that. I just wrapped it and put it on the sheet pan. So it's kind of up to you, whatever you would like to do. So next I am making the rub for the chicken breasts. So we are adding smoked paprika, chili powder, garlic powder, brown sugar, cumin, and salt. And I will have the recipe linked below, so don't worry about the different measurements. I'll have that in the recipe. So you're going to go ahead and just whisk that all together and put that on the chicken. I had so many rave reviews just about this seasoning. My sister said I should use this seasoning on all chicken going forward, and it didn't even need the barbecue sauce that we're going to add at the end. It was just that good. So I also thought if you go to Trader Joe's, they have a kind of barbecue seasoning that is only out during the summer. This reminded me of the barbecue seasoning from Trader Joe's, and I think both are really, really good. So I would say if you don't want to make this seasoning, but you have some sort of barbecue seasoning, you could just add that if it's easier. But this was pretty simple to whip together and put on the chicken. So you're going to go ahead and bake all of that, the chicken, corn, and veggies, at 400 degrees for about 25 minutes. You just want the chicken to be 165 degrees. Funny story with that, my thermometer ended up being on Celsius, so I kept trying to figure out why my chicken was not cooking. I kept taking it out, and then Justin realized the thermometer was on Celsius. The chicken was done, so that's why part of the chicken breast is cut open, because I just couldn't figure out why it was not cooking. But it was okay, the chicken was cooked through, so then you'll add some barbecue sauce to the top of the chicken breast, and then put it back in on the broiler setting for about 2 to 3 minutes just so it caramelizes. And again, that recipe was absolutely delicious. Would highly recommend. Also great for summer, just with it being barbecue chicken. So next we are making Parmesan crusted salmon with broccoli. This was so good. I actually didn't have all of the ingredients even. So I'll tell you the different ingredients I substituted as we go through, but you'll go ahead and chop up about a head of broccoli. I used 2 because I knew Tegan would eat the broccoli as well. And then it says to go ahead and roast the broccoli at 400 degrees for about 5 minutes before you put the salmon on, if you want the broccoli to be a little more cooked. And I like mine a little more cooked, so I went ahead and did that. And I'm just tossing it in olive oil, adding some salt and pepper and some garlic, tossing that together and putting it in the oven for 5 minutes before we add the salmon to the sheet pan. While the broccoli cooks, I'm just going to start making the topping for the salmon. So I am starting with zesting 1 lemon. We're also going to use the juice of a lemon, but make sure to zest it first so that you're not kind of cutting your fingers trying to zest an already cut up lemon. So to the zest, I am going to add a 1/4 cup of breadcrumbs. I just used Italian style breadcrumbs, a 1/4 cup of grated Parmesan, and about a tablespoon of fresh parsley. Again, I just eyeballed the parsley. And then I'm adding 1.5 tablespoons of olive oil. Again, just kind of eyeballed that. And then I started whisking that. My Parmesan just kind of came out in chunks. So I just did my best to try to kind of mix that in as best that I could. So then I'm going to go ahead and juice the lemon. It calls for about 1.5 teaspoons of lemon juice. So I used half of the lemon to juice that, about a tablespoon of garlic, and then it calls for 1.5 tablespoons of mayonnaise. I realized as I was making it, I was out of mayonnaise, so I just added a tablespoon and a half of butter. And I actually went ahead and melted the butter because it just was not combining without me just going ahead and melting that. So then I whisked all of that together, and then I'm going to be pouring it over top of the salmon. I thought the butter mixture turned out really well. I was a little nervous when I didn't have mayonnaise because I think the mayonnaise would help the breadcrumb mixture stick a little bit better, but honestly, it stuck perfectly. And then as I'm pouring the butter onto the salmon, it kind of soaks into the broccoli as well. So the broccoli was kind of like a buttery, lemony broccoli, and it was absolutely fantastic. I loved this. I made it for meal prep for the week because Justin doesn't eat salmon and neither does Tegan. So I went ahead and just had this for dinner, and then I had a lunch and a dinner for the rest of the week as well, and it reheated amazingly too. So I would highly recommend this. This was so fast and easy. Once you put the breadcrumb topping on the salmon, you're going to bake it for 12 to 15 minutes at 400 degrees. You're just looking for the salmon to be flaky, and there's going to be a golden brown crust over it. And again, this was just so simple, easy cleanup, very fast, and it was absolutely delicious. I'll definitely be making this again. The last recipe we're making is gnocchi with mozzarella and cherry tomatoes. This was so good, and this was probably the fastest and easiest of the recipes. So you just need 1 package of gnocchi, and you're going to lay that onto the sheet pan that's already been greased with some olive oil spray. And then you're going to add, it calls for 2 pints of tomatoes, any color. And I had this giant container of red and yellow cherry tomatoes. And I just thought that was so pretty, such a summery vibe with the different colors. And then you're going to add the oil from a container of marinated olives. And that is the olive oil and the herbs that are going to bake with the gnocchi and the cherry tomatoes. And then it calls for cloves of garlic, but I didn't have cloves, so I just kind of added some garlic from the jar, and I just stirred that all together just so that everything was well incorporated. Everything had some oil on it so that nothing stuck to the pan while it was baking. And then this is a shot of it while it was baking. You're going to bake this at a 450-degree oven for about 17 to 20 minutes. And I went ahead and mixed all of this together just to the cherry tomatoes start bursting. So you want it to sort of make like a sauce for the gnocchi. And then you're going to add in the mozzarella balls after you've let it cool for just a few minutes. You just don't want the mozzarella to kind of melt onto the tray, but you want it to heat up. And then you're going to add some fresh basil. I thought I was going to tell you that you could just nix the basil. It was just for garnish, but honestly, the basil made such a difference. Justin doesn't even like tomatoes, and he absolutely loved this recipe and said that he would eat it again. So highly recommend this one. This was probably by far my favorite, but I absolutely loved all of these recipes. I hope you guys did as well. If you did, please let me know in the comments what you plan on making, or if you have any super easy sheet pan meals to make for weeknights. Please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you all next week. Bye, guys.